Hello everybody, welcome to episode 2 of Station to Station Walks. We're now at Formby Station in Merseyside, and while this walk is not strictly a station to station walk as it's a circular walk, it starts here at Formby Station and ends up back here. You can get trains to here from Southport and Liverpool, and you can also get public transport, the details of which I'll put in the description below. Today we're going to be looking at Formby's Lost Resort and the sand dunes around Formby Point. The walk's about 5.5 miles long, and we'll be setting off through the conurbation of Formby before we get to the countryside. This is the overview of the route. We start from Formby Station here and work our way through the streets until we get to Range Lane. This is Cabin Hill Nature Reserve, and the Devil's Hole is around about here, and the Royal Observer Corps nuclear bunker is about here, and then we walk down here past the front of the white houses where we look onto the old seafront of the Lost Resort. Coming back here whereabouts this number 2 is the ruins of Mount Pleasant, and we go through the car park, far side of the car park, and then work our way back to the station. We're leaving the Southport bound side of the platform. If you come from Southport, I suggest you cross the line using the staircase here. You can use the lifts if you wish. And on cue, the lift door opened. And we go out through this little tunnel here into Andrews Lane. We're entering Andrews Lane here, and we're walking up to a T-junction, which is Queen's Road, and at Queen's Road we're going to turn right. We're now coming up to Queen's Road, where we turn right. After we've walked down Queen's Road for about 50 yards, we're going to cross the road and walk down that road there. At the end of Sealand Avenue here, we turn left into Foster Road. And then when we get to the T-junction at the end, we turn right into Elson Road. We make the right turn into Elson Road and then walk straight down till we get to Jubilee Drive. Now at the end of Elson Road, we turn left into Jubilee Drive. Jubilee Drive turns to the right here. We're about to enter the track now, but you can, if you wish to not walk through the streets, get the F3 bus. The bus stops round the corner up ahead of you, and the name of the bus stop is the Range High School. The bus is the number F3, and you can catch that at Formby Bridge, directly opposite the entrance to the station. They run every hour, and the bus stops at the station at 1/4 to the hour. If you get the 8 minutes past train from Liverpool Central, you'll be there in time to catch the bus, and it saves walking through the streets. We're now heading off into the countryside and eventually towards the sand dunes of Formby Point. After about half a mile, we come to the end of the track where we're going to go straight ahead into the Cabin Hill Nature Reserve. Now there's actually 2 tracks either side of us. That one that takes you back to Bushby's Lane and Lifeboat Road, and that one which takes you eventually to Hightown. This is known as St Luke's Church Road, but it's a private road, so you can't park here. We continue on this track until we get to that post you can see in the distance. And just to orientate yourself, that's the track we've just come up. Our first feature of Formby Point is going to be a visit into the Devil's Hole. And those large sand dunes you can see in the distance there are the entrance points to the Devil's Hole. But it's quite steep at this section, so I'm going to walk around it in a big circle and come upon it from the western side, where we're going to descend into the Devil's Hole. So when we reach this marker post, we go straight on, and the path will start burring round to the right slowly. These are the marker posts for the Devil's Hole. We've come in from a different direction. Sorry to confuse you. Just keep following the marker posts with the green arrow and the frog on. And the path is taking you towards the lower dune on the left, where you can see another marker board. The dune to the right here, the very tall one, is the edge of the Devil's Hole. You can attempt to climb into the Devil's Hole from here, up those paths, but the sand is very, very slippy and they're very hard to ascend. We're going into it from a lower ascent, further to the north. There's a marker board that explains all about the Devil's Hole, but just to paraphrase it, they thought it may have been caused by a bomb in the Second World War, and the wind got into it and blew all the sand out. The very bottom of it is the original seabed. Our first sight of Liverpool Bay. As usual for Formby, the tide's well out. So in the distance there, about 100 yards away, you can see the next marker post we're aiming for. So when we reach this marker post, we turn right, even though the dog wants to go straight on. And we're we're now coming up to the marker post I mentioned what we aim for, and then in the distance, in about another 100 yards or so, you can see the next marker post and our first main feature, which is those houses on the brow of the hill. So just before we reach this next marker post, I want to now go off track slightly and head towards the lip of the big hole. So we turn right here. And here, opening out before us, is the Devil's Hole. We're going to take the track that goes down into that little valley and go down into it. Quite a steep climb through soft sand this. You're always recommended to take tiny little footsteps, otherwise your feet will just slip back. Welcome to the Devil's Hole. We're going to turn left here around what's normally in winter a pond, and then we're going to work our way out of the Devil's Hole on the easiest path of the lot. This is where the heavy breathing starts and I get sweaty. We turn right here and go up that path on the very rim of the Devil's Hole. And there ahead of us, that ruined building, is our next point of interest. What we're going to do is we're going to descend down this path here through them bushes, and after about 50 yards, which you can't see from here, there's a path turns to the left. So I'll keep the camera running until we get to that point. The turn off of the path is not as well defined as all the others round here, because it doesn't get used much. But just to orientate you where you've come from, those are the bushes I mentioned that we passed through. So we turn left here and head towards that scar in the dunes. And there it is, the wreckage of a Cold War nuclear bunker. So looking back, when we've climbed this little hill, you can see the extent of the Devil's Hole in front of you, and in the background you've got Seaforth Docks and the Wirral Peninsula, and then panning round is a navigable channel of the Mersey Estuary with the wind turbines on the Great Burbo Bank, and in that direction is where the bar of the river is. So we pan further round and you can see the remains of the nuclear bunker and what's left of Formby's Lost Resort. When there was an imminent threat of nuclear attack after the Second World War, there was one of these stations built every 15 miles and were manned by the Royal Observer Corps. There used to be 4 people in it, 3 men and a woman, and this is the entrance hole here. It's been blocked up, but someone has knocked this out and there's nothing much down there to see, but there would have been accommodation down there. And this big concrete dish here was the water supply, and on top of the bunker there were points so that you could put detection equipment for radioactive fallout, and also a big glass ball which magnified onto a piece of special paper, and when there was a nuclear flash it would burn in the direction the flash had been. And all of these observer corps stations reported back to a main observer corps depot, which is in Rudyard Heath near Stoke-on-Trent. As I say, they were 15 miles apart, and the next one was up the Mersey Estuary. You can see Sefton Docks there, Birkenhead and the Wirral, and the far side, 15 miles away, is Speke Airport, which people now call John Lennon Airport. But the old Speke Airport, where the entrance to Speke Hall is, was the next bunker. And then 15 miles in that direction, which you can't see it, is the next one on top of Billinge Hill. They were eventually abandoned in the 60s. Now this next view is the one that got me intrigued the most. Why would there be some houses built in the middle of sand dunes? Seemed odd to me. But the reason for this is that that used to be the sea front in front of those houses. And I'll give you a brief description. In the 19th century, Southport, which is in that direction there, was beginning to be built up as a resort, and houses were built and people moved in there, and there was a railway line built from Liverpool to Southport to service the resort. But in the latter half of the 19th century there was a group of entrepreneurs who thought it might be better to build a resort nearer Liverpool than Southport. So they put in planning permission and laid roads, started to build a few houses, but they asked for an extension to the railway line so they could have a station here. And various things happened over the years. The first thing that came along was the First World War, and that stopped the extensions of the railway line. Then there was a Great Depression in the 1920s, and that stopped the railway line. And then there was a Second World War, and that stopped the resort permanently. And the visions of having roads and houses, a housing estate, there was even a hotel here, just faded away. And these two buildings here are the only ones left that are lived in. We'll see the wreckage of another building later, which was called Mount Pleasant. But there was a few more buildings here, and they were used in the Second World War for training for street fighting in D-Day, and most of them were destroyed during that, except the white building ahead of us, which used to be a Catholic boys' orphanage. But we're going to walk down now towards the buildings, and I'm going to show you the original seafront. Just watch your step here, because the ruins make it underfoot a little tricky. So this is Albert Road, which is accessed from St Luke's Church Road, but you can't drive here because it's a private road and it's gated. So that way takes you towards St Luke's Church Road, and this way we're going to access the old seafront. So we'll walk down for a bit and then turn right. Now this series of marker posts, I'll take you all the way back to Lifeboat Road car park, but we're going to have a little diversion here. There's an ill-defined path off here to the left. Don't know if you can just see it through the grass, heading towards that little valley there with the trees. And what we've been on was the old seafront road. and we're heading towards the steps down to the beach as used to be. And here are the steps, one set of them, that used to go down onto the beach. So from that point onwards, up there, was the seaside. So where do you think did all of these sand dunes come from? I'll walk back up to the top and then I'll explain. We just take the straight path this time. So we're back on the marked path and we're going to turn left here. That brick wall you can see ahead of us used to be a rifle range for the King's Liverpool Regiment. But we're turning left here, following this path towards the marker post, towards a navigation marker for the old lifeboat station. You can just see it poking up on the horizon. We walk down the path till we get to the next marker post and turn right. Now just beyond that marker post, on the level bit, is the foundations for the Stella Maris Hotel that was built here. And we take, for a small portion, the old road to it. The Stella Maris was taken over and used as a radar station in the Second World War. This vista of dunes that surround us here, all the way around, all the way to the Devil's Hole and beyond, were not here 150 years ago. About 100 or so years ago, the Mersey Docks and Harbour Board, to make the river more navigable, put a stoned channel more or less directly opposite where we are now. I don't know if it'll show up on the film with the haze, but can you see the windmills in the distance? Well, that's Great Burbo Bank, that. And on this side it's called Mockbeggar Wharf, and a stone channel was built which is self-scouring with the tide. It self-scoured to the effect was that all of the sand from that channel ended up being blown here as sand dunes and choked off any chance of there being a resort here. They look as though they've been here for eternity, don't they? But they're not that old. The local council have planted it all with marram grass to stop it drifting. Gradually the sand, if left uncontrolled, would have blown all the way into Formby and started choking the houses there. We turn right now into what used to be Alexandra Road, and strangely enough, through all of this drifting sand over the last century, the road surface is still here. And if we look at this concrete in the sand, that's part of the old Stella Maris Hotel. We walk on now through them bushes. So as we come out of the bushes, we come to another marker post and a notice board where we turn left into what used to be Mount Pleasant. This board here shows the scenes up until about the 1950s, before some of the buildings were knocked down. We're now turning off Alexandra Road and into what used to be the house called Mount Pleasant. You can still see some of the foundations here. As elsewhere at Formby Point, there's loads and loads of paths, so we're taking the one that's 334 degrees from this point, just where that dog is crossing now. If the dog's not there when you come to do the walk, you can see the post in the distance about 300 yards away. When you get to this post, the path turns slightly to the left, and then about 50 yards away you can see another post, and then about 50 yards from that to the right you can see another post. We're now passing the second post in the series, and you can see the third post ahead of us. When we pass the last post in this particular series, the path turns right through them woods. As we're coming out of the woods, you can see the next post in the distance. Plus a handy seat if you're feeling a bit tired by now. So as the post indicates, go past this seat and straight on. And just as we were starting to get worried, another post looms up. Yet another post is here. We bend slightly to the left and head towards that stand of trees. We're now going to cross Lifeboat Road. There's a series of these handy notice boards all over the place with really important information, such as the tide times on it. The water goes out a long way here, and you don't want to come here if it's low tide, because it can be up to a mile to the seaside. Come here at high tide and it's the cleanest beach in this part of the coast. We're now walking through this path, which will take us eventually to the car park. As I said in the intro, you can actually start this walk from the car park if you wish. If you're a National Trust member, then it's free. So we bear right at this next junction. We're now entering the car park, and we want to cross it diagonally to pick up the exit back to the railway station. From here you can see two marker posts on poles. We're heading for the one on the left. Just in case you do park in the car park, this is the very end of Bay 3 where this marker post is, and we take the right hand path. When you come up this slight rise here, we're going to turn right where that bench is. Take the right hand path here and just bear around to the right when you come to this point. You keep following the made up path. We'll start to climb shortly and head towards St Luke's Road. We're coming to the end of the woods now and into civilization. We now just walk straight up Kirklake Road ahead of us, which takes us back to Formby Station.